Hello, welcome. This is Gloria Presta, Mind in Focus. And today I'm going to talk about the puzzling question of why some people are more affected than others by mental health. Is there a difference between the people who suffer from mental health and those who do not suffer from it? So this is the question I'm trying to answer with this presentation, which I'm going to share. And let's put it on the slideshow and from the beginning. So why do some people develop mental health problems and others don't? Can it be a genetic predisposition? Are people already born with a genetic predisposition? That's what some people think. Is it the family environment they're born into and their development in their family, or are there other factors? And the reality is mostly it's life. It's the things that happen in life. Somebody may have perhaps some genetic predisposition, but their life is easy and with no real problems or traumas, and they never get to develop a problem. And some people might be born with very good genetic sort of makeup and have no issues whatsoever, but then have some traumatic events in their lives that makes them develop, a mental health condition. So life, what happens in life tends to be the determinant for the difference between those who have and those who don't have any mental health problems. So it could be the death of a loved one. People who are in bereavement, actually, if you didn't know that they were in bereavement, that they've lost a loved one, the suffering that they go through and all the symptoms of the bereavement itself and the grief are so severe sometimes that if you didn't have the grief, you would think that they had a serious mental health condition, that they were mentally ill, when in fact, as unpleasant as it is, it's a natural process. But if someone experiences the death of a parent when they're a young child, then that has some implications for later on in life if they encounter other problems. It depends on what happens after the death of the parent and how their care is being provided for them and so on. It could be somebody suffering from the divorce sort of situation or a breakup, a broken heart, and it could be that it's something that happened to the person or something that the person experienced their parents going through. But also it could be something unexpected as redundancy, and it's nothing to do with the upbringing or anything like that. It's just redundancy. Being out of work is really hard. It's a real shock to the system, and it can provoke depression. Or it could be, the stresses of running a business and going into bankruptcy. It could be just everything is hunky-dory and then all of a sudden there is a really traumatic event. It could be an accident or an assault or being in a war zone or whatever. That is a really traumatic event that might trigger a problem. And of course, bullying and discrimination has a severe effect on mental health. But one of the most important things, and there is a really good study that you can just go into Google and find out, but this is the adverse childhood experiences. Children who had adverse experiences during, obviously in their childhood, then tend to develop not only mental health problems, but also health problems in general. And there is a clear link between having bad experiences during childhood and having bad health of all kinds, including mental health later on in life. It's a very interesting report that I would recommend anyone to look into it. And so that we sometimes don't realize the damage that some children have suffered. And obviously, as they're adults and no longer children, you don't make that link and why they behave the way they do, why they have the problems they have, and so on. So what is really at the root of all mental problems? If we look at the root of it, what is it that it's at the root of most mental health problems? It could be somebody suffering from a biological condition, something's wrong with their actual brain, but mostly it's not about that. Normally where there is anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's anger issues, whether it's overwhelm, everything like that tends to have, relationship issues, breakup, misunderstandings. At the root of it all, at the core of any mental health issue, emotional distress, mood disorder, any addiction or unhealthy habit, there is always the search to satisfy a basic need of different kinds, but a basic need could be for attention, it could be for security, for connection, for self-worth, for love, things like that. Because when a need is not satisfied, the subconscious keeps on looking for something to satisfy that need. So, and when does it start? Well, it starts from birth, because the instinctive need for survival just kicks in. And when a baby cries, it cries to call the attention so that someone comes and satisfy their needs. And according to the response that the baby gets, whether his or her needs are being met or not, at the unconscious level, they acquire ideas of how the world functions and where they fit into the world. Are they important enough that people around them will meet their needs, or not important enough that anyone is going to bother? So things are set up from very early on. And the one very common mistake that most adults do, have done, including myself till I started learning more about this, is thinking that babies, because they don't understand, they don't have language, they don't have memories, they don't have understanding, and they might not have bad memories of the baby years. This is not the case. Now, babies do not have an explicit biographical memory that they could recount what's been happening to them or what they've been doing. However, all of it is recorded and it's imprinted in their nervous system and in their bodies. So children will have implicit memories, okay, in their system, in their nervous system. And these implicit memories will give them information about how to view the situations they find themselves in the real world and how to react to them, even though they have no conscious awareness at all of all these memories. And there have been, in many adoption cases, and sometimes couples adopt a child and the child is very, very young, if they adopt a particular baby, and, very young children, they assume they have no memory of the past and no memory of any trauma. But the babies will come within their system. They will have the trauma they might have suffered before they were adopted, or just simply the trauma of the separation from the mother. So they do not understand it and they cannot verbalize it, but they feel it until it's resolved. So good adoption programs will help the adoptive parents to learn about the trauma, and they will have trauma-informed parenting classes so that they understand it's nothing they have done and it's nothing that the child actually knows, but it's something that is within the child's nervous system that needs to be addressed, and a lot of patience is required to deal with those children because they do have the trauma with them. Now, the inner child. Now, at the center of all of our subconscious minds resides that child that we once were. And that child that perhaps we were frightened or confused and not able to understand the world, and very often making interpretations and getting meaning from the words and situations that might be completely misguided, or that no longer is appropriate to have them as adults. So this inner child that lives within us, that is still within us, sometimes can cause a lot of problems because we know where that we're still behaving like that child, we're still reacting like that child, with the ideas that that child picked up that might no longer be really appropriate for us as adults, or they were completely misunderstood and misguided. So when it comes to bad habits, we have to understand that any behavior, however inappropriate and however bad for our health, or however, it's always started with a positive intention. Maybe someone started smoking because they wanted to be popular, or maybe they were bullied at school and they thought, if they smoked, would be cooler, and if they gave cigarettes to the bullies, they would be, they would stop bullying them, and in fact, it works like a treat. So that idea stays imprinted in the subconscious mind, and that um, way of coping with things keeps being brought up over and over again. So unless the person goes and updates the subconscious, it will carry on using the same habitual action because it's what worked. And now it's no longer required and no longer fit for purpose, but if you haven't updated it, it keeps on happening. So when it comes to alcohol and substance abuse, it's really unhealthy and it's not desirable. But why are people doing it? It is often a question of, is it self-medication? Is it escapism? Is it trying to numb the pain? I had one of my clients who developed an addiction to alcohol after the death of her mother. So it was, she was very young and she was going through a really tough time. The family was quite disjointed, and some friends just suggested that, if she got drunk, she would get over it, at least at the short term. So she did. She found release, and from a very young age, she got hooked on alcohol as a way of numbing the pain. So, and sometimes it's just a way of avoiding being on their own with their own thoughts, being alone, just thinking and looking into their own reality, their own thoughts, and confronting the selves that they don't like. So there are many reasons why people will act the way they do. It's not just a question of being addicted to a substance. There is something there is then, of course, the addiction to the substance, which happens at a biological level. But before that, there was a reason for it. So when you are looking for programs that help people with addictions, if they only look at the habit and they don't look at the reason why the habit was created, they might not be successful. Equally, if they only look at the reason why they started, but they don't look at the habit that they've created, it doesn't help either. You need a combination of those, the root and the habit, and both needs to be addressed. But there's also other forms of addiction that don't seem to be as nasty, but they are equally bad, which is being completely immersed in your workaholism, or any way, which keeps you busy and avoiding thinking and facing the real problems. If you're busy, you don't have to deal with it. This happens sometimes with people who are going through bereavement, and after they lose this person that they love so much, they just get busy because they don't want to deal with the grief. The reality is you can't avoid dealing with the grief. At some point you have to. But when it's not a question of bereavement, there are also things that you don't like about yourself or you don't like about the situation. If you keep busy, you don't have to confront it. But also some people think they don't feel that they have real value in themselves, don't feel they have intrinsic self-value. So the value they apportion to themselves is only linked to the work that they produce. So if I keep on working, I will eventually impress my parents, for example. If I keep on working, I keep showing that I have value. And that is not good for your health. It's not doing any good to your well-being. So as humans, we're always searching for meaning in our lives, for understanding of why things happen, why we do things, and why other people do things, and why this happened to me, and so on. And we need connection. We are searching for connection to other people, connection to a group, connection to someone, because we're not coping well while we're disconnected. We are biologically programmed to be connected, to be in connection. We have survived as a species because we worked in groups and we were connected to groups. So being disconnected at evolutionary level of psychology means being in danger, because in the past, when you were part of a tribe and you could only survive by being part of a tribe, if you were left out, you were lunch for some predator. So at an instinctive level, we still feel that, and we still feel if we are alone and disconnected, we have a primordial fear of our lives. And this is something that is not easily understood, but need for connection is essential for everyone, every human being. right? So as I said, we are intrinsically part of something bigger. We know instinctively that we are intrinsically part of something bigger than ourselves, and we do not function well either physically or mentally as isolated individuals. So what are our needs? And this is a very well known in psychology and in psychology circles, a very well known sketch or representation of human needs, and it's called the hierarchy of needs. So first of all, you need to feel that you have the physiological needs just resolved. So that's food, water, and shelter. And then you need to have the safety needs, making sure that you're in a safe environment, that you're not constantly threatened. And when you have those satisfied, you can just, fulfill then the need for love and belonging. And then if you have that, then you have the need for self-esteem, how you value yourself. And then what Maslow, which created this sketch, this representation, said this was when you have all of those needs, you can be self-actualized, which is a very strange word, but anyway, which just means the moments where you have full of creation in an absolute bliss. But what I think all of those build up to me is about having your identity. You have an identity of somebody who is capable of coping with life, an identity that you are capable of managing whatever things happen around you, that you are self-assured, that you have a sense of your own value. All of these things below come to the top to give you an identity of somebody who is capable of going through life and just managing whatever comes your way, or somebody who's frightened that they're not capable of dealing with life or dealing with certain situations in life, and they have an identity of somebody who is not good enough, not valuable enough, not clever enough. And this is where all the problems sometimes begin. So when we are raising children, we need to be aware that all of these things of giving them security and the safety and the belonging and creating the self-esteem is to create an identity of someone who's capable of moving through life with calm and ease and dealing with whatever challenges come their way. So what is it that people are looking for sometimes when they have problems? We need to get curious that what needs we have throughout life. So if we think from a child's point of view, and we're thinking back of that representation of Maslow's, we need the need for food and shelter, hygiene and medical care. That's something that the child needs a grown-up to provide. The need for a safe environment. And this is a very, very important one, the next one, which is not always fully understood. You need to have a safe, emotionally available person to go to in times of trouble. Some child may have the food, the shelter, and the medication, the clothes, whatever it is that they need. But if they don't have someone to go to when they fall down, when they have a problem in school, when they have a fight with their brother or sister or whatever, if they don't have an emotionally available person to go to in times of trouble, they're going to be at serious risk of developing later mental health issues. Now, they also have the need to explore the surrounding world, the need to create independence and to go out and explore the world and come back to the safe person. And this is what toddlers tend to do when they start sort of just exploring more their surroundings. They go, they play, but they always come back to the care, the mother, the father, whoever it is caring after them, as a safe place to go. It's almost like a safe port of call where they need to go for their safety. And then they're secure enough and brave enough to go out and explore the world again and come back. So that's a really important element that sets the good foundations for healthy mind. The child needs to be heard. They need to be listened to and heard what they're saying, okay? And they need to participate in conversation. If a child is not included in conversation, is missing out a lot in the acquisition of language, but also in the sense of importance within their family and therefore later on within the world. Are their opinions important? Is what they think important? Are what they say, what they're saying, is it good enough for other people to listen to? And they need to play. They need to acquire skills. They need to fall and get up. They need to make mistakes. They need to explore the world through their play. Play is not just a way of passing time for children because they have nothing better to do. Play is the important medium through which they learn the skills to become an adult eventually. So these are basically the needs that the child will have. But as an adult, we still have a lot of needs, and we keep having those needs. So obviously you have the need for food, for shelter, and for safety. And in these days, with so many issues around the world, they're provoking situations where so many people lose all of that. They become refugees, and they lose the security of their food supply, they lose their shelter, they lose perhaps all the sense of safety. So they also have the need to belong and to be valued, and they have the need to be heard, they need to be accepted as they are. They need to have self-efficacy and to feel that they are individually independent within a supportive group, but to have that independence, not just be completely dictated by what the group says. They need to belong to a group, but they need to have some individual independence within that. They need for growth. We are constantly needing to grow, to improve, to learn, just to evolve. That's just a natural need that we all humans have. And we have a need to contribute, to realize that we have value and what we can contribute to the group is valuable. So those are the really important needs that we all need to need to fulfill. If any of those are not fulfilled, it will cause problems with the person. So when a person is acting odd or when you're having problems, don't get mad, just get curious. What is it that is missing? What need is not fulfilled? And I hope this explains to some degree why some people might develop mental health issues while others don't necessarily do that. So just get curious, find out what is missing, what need is not being met. And this is the end of my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I hope this has just given you something to think about and look at mental health from a variety of perspectives, and that you can understand sometimes why people do what they do and why people have the problems they may have. But also, if you have a problem, figure out what is missing. One of your needs is not being met. What is it? Because sometimes you don't know, and you need to go somewhere or do something where they can find that, they get that information out of your subconscious. So I hope you have found this informative and of value, and I thank you for paying me attention for these minutes.